Okay, all, welcome back. It is 3:45. We're going to get started with our Valentine's Day dinner, which is pork, dumplings, and sweet sour cabbage. We're going to start the pork roast. It's still a little early for me to put it in the oven. I'm shooting dinner for 6:45 tonight, so I'm not going to actually put it in the oven for an hour. I'm going to start my oven in about a half an hour, but we're going to get the pork roast ready. I'm going to flip you guys around. You guys, magic, are going to flip around so you can see my refrigerator. And I'm going to take out this beautiful roast as well as our pork fat. And you have to excuse, some of this is going to be messy. Like I said earlier in the video, this does not make a ton of gravy. So at our local supermarkets, in their gravy section, you can get this pork gravy. And it's really quick. Each packet on the back will have directions on how to make the gravy. This is for the Kroger, the generic. Usually I have more. Depending on how many people and how big of a loin of pork you have will determine how many packets of gravy you're going to use. My husband, since this makes 2 cups, will probably only use 1 since it's just the 2 of us. But if you're serving a lot of people, you can easily make 2 packets or even more if you need. You will have juice in the pan that we will use for the dumplings. It just does not make a good gravy because pork gravy is very, very hard to make from scratch. So what we're doing is I'm just kind of moving the ingredients for the dumplings, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. I have my flour, my eggs, and my milk are just all chilling in their bowls, but we're going to concentrate on the pork right now. Now, normally, this is my husband's favorite meal. He gets it at least twice a year. On his birthday is traditional. I've made it every year since we've been together, and we've been together. This year will be our 24th year together as a couple, as a married couple, and he gets it every year for his birthday. There was one year he almost did not get the pork roast, and that was the year that my grandfather passed away. And my grandfather passed away the day before his birthday, but I was still able to run home, make it, spend his birthday with him, and then we went back for the funeral. So, anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move you guys down so you guys can kind of see this. I may have to pull you back. And I'm going to angle so you can see it. I'm just going to take it out of its package. Now, if you get this at a butcher shop, make sure to get it bone in, and you're going to want to have them chime the bone. And as soon as I get it out, my butcher wraps very, very, very well. And this has only been sitting in my refrigerator for 1 day. I bought it actually yesterday. I was able to run over. And I'm going to show you. When I say chime the bone, you're going to notice on the back of your roast, these bones in particular have to be cracked or chimed. If they are not, when you go to cut this will not. You cannot cut through these. This is one solid bone. It makes it impossible. Chiming the bone just means he made a slit right here so that when I actually go to cut the roast, these I'll just end up cutting right through and they'll come right off the roast. So let me get this off and I'm going to show you. Now, if you buy pork loin roasts in the supermarket, they're a little bit trickier to find. Back in the day when my grandmother used to do this, our supermarkets used to have a variety of different roasts, including the pork loin roast, and it was fairly easy to find a bone-in roast. Nowadays, it's a little bit harder to get, so always, if your supermarket has a butcher counter, go to your butcher counter and ask them for a center cut pork loin roast. That's where you will get the best roast that they have. If you have a freestanding butcher like I do that's close by, they definitely will be able to cut the roast for you and make it easier. The other thing you're going to notice is if you go to a supermarket, this has some fat on it, but I'm going to actually kind of lean it up. You can tell it doesn't have a lot of fat. The problem is, and this started probably about 15 to 20 years ago, in the late 90s, early 2000s, people started to become very health conscious. And a lot of companies, especially supermarkets that are incredibly big chained, like Safeway, Jewel, Publix, Kroger, decided to get on the health kick, and they started to really trim their roasts to where their pork roasts in particular don't have a lot of fat on them. The problem with not having the fat on them is you will get a dried out roast much quicker than if you have one with a lot of fat. You also will not get a whole lot of flavor out of your roast. So the best thing to do, and again, you may not find this at a supermarket, but my butcher had extra fat that was trimmed off of a hog or a pig to put on top. This will actually keep your roast moisturized. It'll also make a really good crackling, and it'll add flavor to your roast. So always try to get pork fat. The trick with pork fat, though, is you want to have the top skin removed, because that's unedible and is incredibly tough to cut. So make sure when you get, if you get extra pork fat, that they've trimmed off the skin layer of the pig. So this is not going to be a lot of prep work. If your roast has been sitting for a couple of days in the refrigerator, give it a good wash. Rinse it with cold water and then pat it dry. This has only been in for 1 day, so I don't need to do much to it. I'm going to move you guys up, and I'm going to try to see if I can angle you guys without... And I'm not going to be able to do this. Okay, I'm going to put you guys down. This is not going to really turn. So I'm just going to show you. With your caraway, you're going to want the 3 holes. And I kind of showed you this on the video when we did the sweet sour cabbage. What you're going to do is you're going to caraway your roast on all sides, front, back, and both sides of the roast. And I'm going to start with the back. And you don't have to go heavy-handed. I'm going to flip you guys over so you can see this. That's all caraway. We're not going to salt and pepper this because we don't need to. The caraway has a good flavor that will bring out the pork flavoring. Plus, if you're going to put gravy on top of this later on, that has salt in it. And you can always season with salt and pepper when you go to sit down. Pork roasts don't need a whole lot of flavor. A lot of times when I go out and I have pork, they're usually very salty to me. And it's because people have a tendency to over-season them when they don't need to. Now I'm just doing the front of the roast. And again, I'm going to kind of put you back. We're just kind of carawaying the top of the roast. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing to each side. And again, I'm going to show you that's one side, and I'm going to go ahead and do it to the other side. And you want to do this about a half an hour to 45 minutes before you put your roast into the oven. Now, if you're not fond of caraway, you don't have to put as much caraway on your roast, but I think it flavors the roast really well. Now with my fat, now for this size of a roast, this is quite a bit of pork fat. I probably would have just used one of these and this would be sufficient. But I'm just going to cover the top of my roast. I'm going to show you guys what I did. This is the excess pork fat that I got out of the package. And my butcher trimmed it, had it, and I'm just putting it on top. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bit of caraway on top of the fat. And the caraway will give the fat a nice mellow taste. Again, if you don't like fat, you do not have to eat this, but it will keep your roast moisturized. I'm going to show you. That's the caraway. That's all you need to do with the pork loin roast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this off to the side. Like I said, I'm not going to put it in the oven until about 4:45. The roast is going to take 2 hours. You're going to cook it at 450 degrees for 2 hours. Like I said earlier, you're going to want a water glass because you're going to add water to the pan, but not for the first half an hour of cooking. So when you put the roast in, set your timer for a half an hour and let it alone. When it rings in a half an hour, you're going to add 1 cup of hot water to your roasting pan. And you're going to do this 3 times for the roast as it cooks. And I'll show you that as we go on. So that was pretty much the pork roast. It's a very, very simple pork roast to make. And it is going to be delicious. So follow me as we do the rest of the recipe.